Welcome back to a Wednesday edition of Ron Potesta in the Morning. So there's a doomsday political scenario for the Democrats. It is the midterm elections, and it seems to be a red wave approaching. And joining me on the hotline to talk about that, we bring in the Chief of Staff for Young Americans for Liberty, Sean Themea, joining me on the hotline. So, Sean, as inflation continues to rise, gas prices, even though it's been lowered the last couple of weeks, still well over $4 a gallon. It's spelling gloom and doom for the Democrats in November.
I agree, and great to be here. I would tell you, I would love to sit in on a DNC meeting right now. I would bring some s'mores because their hair is on fire. I'd have plenty to roast them on. But this is just insane what's going on, and young people are waking up to that more than ever. I mean, talking to kids who are in college right now, the one thing that's uniting young conservatives, libertarians, and the far left is that they do not want Biden to be president after 2024, if not today. I mean, this administration has completely let us down in so many ways, and this is going to have consequences for Democrats in the midterms.
Sean, I understand that the day following midterm elections, there's going to be a campaign going to be launching on November the 9th, and the campaign is hashtag Don't Run Joe. What is that all about?
Yeah, well, you see progressives who are being upset with President Biden and the administration because they've turned their back on pretty much, every progressive promise that they have made. Since they ran. I mean, they ran on a pure platform of Trump bad and we're going to be good and leftist. But day one, I mean, he screws over workers by canceling the Keystone Pipeline, right? Putting all these union workers out of work, not very progressive. He keeps dangling the student loans cancellation in front of progressives, but, nobody really believes him that he's going to cancel them. And on top of that, I mean, just look at the credibility issue. I mean, young people see through the internet all of the mistakes he's made, all of his gaffes. They see the Hunter Biden iCloud leak. I mean, this is spelling not good. So many words for progressives. And so, they want someone who's actually going to deliver on their agenda, or at least someone who's going to be competent. So I think that's where you see the opposition on the far left coming from.
Sean Themea joining me on the hotline. News just breaking. The inflation report is out. The inflation currently at 9.1%. That's up 0.5% from the month of May. So 9.1% is now the new number. That is the highest that it has been since the Carter administration in the late 70s, the early stages of the Ronald Reagan administration when the inflation number was in double digits. The inflation number just announced 9.1% in the month of June. Or the month of May. It would have been in the month of June. We're in July now. And the Democrats had already said about a few hours beforehand, well, the number, it's not going to be indicative of gas prices going down, food prices going down. But the reality is, Sean, 9.1%, you can't run away from that.
Absolutely. I mean, inflation is an equal opportunity destroyer. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, Hispanic, you voted for Trump, you voted for Biden, you didn't vote at all. I mean, you're getting hit in your wallet right now. I mean, $100 tanks of gas in some parts of the country. You've got people who can't afford their rent. They're choosing between rent and, sustainable food, healthy meals, because they just can't afford it. And the Biden administration's policies of continuing to print money, give out stimulus, and explicitly say, we're not really going to reduce the gas prices or do anything to help with that because you need to sacrifice for Eastern Europe and Ukraine. I mean, they're spelling out that they have no plan to fix this. And in fact, their plan is to keep it going, which I don't know what political consultant advised them on that strategy, but sure as heck ain't working.
Chief of Staff at Young Americans for Liberty, Sean Themea, joining me on the hotline. So, Sean, we've talked about the potential red wave in November. Let me ask you to get your crystal ball out. How big of a red wave are we talking about in the midterm elections?
I'm thinking a big one. I mean, I'm thinking that the Republicans take back the House. I mean, the Senate is a little bit more of a mixed bag, a lot of variables there. But I think it's important to remind folks that it doesn't matter if we have a red wave if the Republicans that are getting elected are not liberty Republicans and anti-establishment. I mean, we can have a red wave, but if it's a bunch of Mitch McConnells or Paul Ryans, I mean, you remember when Paul Ryan was in charge, Republicans had the House, the Senate, and the presidency, they barely got anything done, right? So we need people who aren't afraid to challenge the status quo. And if you got a primary in your state and you haven't voted, I mean, look at the people who are opposing the status quo, and in the red wave, it might actually mean something.
Yeah, there's certainly a number of candidates, especially on the Senate side of things. I know in the state of Ohio, J.D. Vance is going to be running against Tim Ryan, and whoever wins is going to be the new senator because Rob Portman decided not to run for re-election. So a golden opportunity for conservatives to take the state of Ohio with J.D. Vance.
Absolutely, and I think if J.D. Vance is in office, he could be a top voice for anti-intervention and sober foreign policy, which, as we see now, our foreign policy decisions are affecting what we pay at the gas and the grocery store. So that's important than ever. You look at Bruce Fenton out in New Hampshire. He's talking about sound money and how our currency has been distorted by the government. I mean, these are very important issues. So plenty of good candidates out there.
Sean Themea joining me, the Chief of Staff at Young Americans for Liberty. Now, here we are in the dead of summer, mid-July. We are still 4 months away, give or take a few months, 4 months away approximately from the midterm election. So for the Democrats, 4 months to try to figure out how to make things a little bit better. Now, as we made mention, news just breaking, the inflation rate is at 9.1%, and that's the highest it's been since the last couple of years of the Carter administration. Now, from a Democratic standpoint, let's say that between now and October, that 9.1% goes down about 2 or 3 percentage points, and things suddenly get a little bit better. That could spell trouble for a potential red wave, wouldn't you think, Sean?
It would, but I just don't think it's going to happen. And even if it does happen, let's say it goes down 2 percentage points. I mean, I would be saying, okay, well, look at the price of gas still. I mean, if inflation is down 2 percentage points, let's just say gas is at $3 a gallon. That is still double, more than double, or excuse me, just, about $1.50 more than what it was, around the time that Trump was, right before the November elections in 2020. So, you can't just jack up the price of everything, reduce them by 20% and say, look, we're winning, right? This is a winning issue, and Republicans should keep hammering it if they want to see this red wave through. And I just don't think you're going to see that kind of, problem solving from the Democrats because they just simply can't solve any problems.
Sean Themea joining me on the hotline. Roots Action told Fox News Digital Monday of its plans for a hashtag Don't Run Joe campaign that's sent to launch the day after the midterm elections. And we talked a little bit about this, Sean. I have to imagine that some Democrats are actually going to be on board with this, being the fact Joe Biden is currently the oldest president in the history of this country.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got a huge credibility issue when you see his Ron Burgundy-style teleprompter gasps, repeating, repeat the line, and the quote. It's embarrassing. It's sad. I mean, some might even define it as elder abuse, keeping him up there. But, I think that this actually works in favor for Republicans, libertarians, and conservatives as well, because if you've got a far left group, that ends up pushing Biden out, or just Biden gets pushed out, doesn't run, they run someone who's going to run on gender ideology, CRT, radical socialism. I mean, that is going to animate not just Republican voters, but the average American who sees that as just an extension of bad Biden policies at a more extreme level. I think that guarantees you another red wave in 2024. Because Biden may be incompetent, but if you've got a competent socialist, that is still a problem, and people will recognize that.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the teleprompter, someone to say F you San Diego, and see if Biden will read that. Sean, always a pleasure,
man.
sir. Look forward to speaking with you soon.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
You got it, brother.